In today's episode of Locked On Oilers, a preview into the game against the Kraken, Alexis Lafreniere, and the Beast of the Week. All that and much more on today's episode of Locked On Oilers.
You're Locked On Oilers, your daily podcast on the Edmonton Oilers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome back to Locked On Oilers podcast. I am your host and former Oilers game day producer, Brett Holden. As mentioned on today's episode, we're going to start off with a little preview of the game between the Edmonton Oilers and the Seattle Kraken, as Seattle hosts the Edmonton Oilers for the first time this year at Climate Pledge Arena. A big game in Seattle. Is the second last game for the Edmonton Oilers this year. We will also, in today's episode, take a look at Alexis Lafreniere, fallen out of order in New York, and someone who might need a fresh start. Could that be in Edmonton? I don't know. We'll talk about that a little later on. And to wrap up today's episode, a little bit of a title in the works here, but the Beast of the Week, as this one owns Calgary. Let's just be real. He is the Calgary Flames owner. Either way, all that much more on today's episode of Locked On Oilers. Thank you so much for making Locked On Oilers your first listen every day. We are free and available wherever you find your podcasts. Alrighty, let's get into the preview between the Edmonton Oilers and the Seattle Kraken, as Edmonton travels to Seattle, as mentioned, for the first time this year, and will be playing at the Climate Pledge Arena for an 8 o'clock puck drop here in Edmonton. 8 o'clock puck drop, a little later than usual, but that's the Pacific Northwest, baby. Either way, a couple of news and notes coming out of this game for the Edmonton Oilers is that there isn't really many news or notes out of today's optional morning skate. Leon Draisaitl didn't skate again. In fact, it's unclear whether or not Leon even traveled with the team. There hasn't really been a bunch of reports on whether or not he is with the team or not, which is a little concerning, but not really at the same time as the Edmonton Oilers face the second of a back-to-back tomorrow on Saturday in Edmonton as well. So if he isn't in the game tonight against Seattle, he may be in the game again on Saturday, but either way, right now, we're not too sure a lot of things around the Edmonton Oilers. Now, I read a comment yesterday on the YouTube portion or on YouTube mentioning, of course, he wouldn't say anything. Why would Jay Woodcroft say anything? He's a coach. He wouldn't say anything. Well, there's different coaching styles. Take a look. There's a reason why we're talking about Alexis Lafreniere today, and that's because their coach came out there and said, you know what, we need him to be better. And there's different coaches who are more transparent in press conferences to the media, however, and then there's coaches who aren't, and that's Jay Woodcroft. He does this with the goalies. Could you tell me who's starting tonight for the Edmonton Oilers right now? No. The amount of times that we started this, the game started a warm-up, sitting there going, oh, here are the lines. Here we go. There we go. Like, he keeps a lot of things under wraps. That is the type of coach Jay Woodcroft is. And going into Seattle, we have the same deal here. So we don't have exact lines yet, but what I do imagine the Edmonton Oilers are going to do, if there isn't Leon Draisaitl, is as follows. We did talk about this a lot yesterday, but this is my final prediction for the Edmonton Oilers lineup tonight, as Zach Hyman will line up next to Connor McDavid and Jesse Puljujarvi. Warren Foegele will be on the second line with Ryan Nugent-Hopkins and Kyler Yamamoto. Matthias Janmark and Klim Kostin will be the wings for the newly quote-unquote promoted Ryan McLeod, Ryan Nugent-Hopkins 2.0, let's be real. And Dylan Holloway will be on the fourth line, with Devon Shore being the player getting the call back into the lineup, and Derek Ryan being the fourth line winger there. Now, the Edmonton Oilers will, I believe, stick with the same defensive group as they have all season, basically. Darnell Nurse with Cody Ceci, Brett Kulak with Tyson Barrie. I do have Marcus Niemelainen Niemelainen in the lineup right now for the Oilers with Evan Bouchard, although it does sound like Philip Broberg is nearing a return. He was in the skills competition skating around, has been skating in some practices as well. Not sure if he'll be ready for this game right now, especially after the Niemelainen wins fastest skater. Give the kid a shot. But as well right now, as far as we know, Stuart Skinner is slated to be in the net, and then Campbell will likely get the second half, but we're just unsure right now because that's Jay Woodcroft. Over on the other side, now a couple of very interesting Seattle Kraken to take note of, and a couple of former Edmonton Oilers as well. Let's take a look at the Kraken side as Jared McCann lines up on the top line for the Seattle Kraken with probably the Calder leader in Matty Beniers, and on the right side, Edmonton Oilers cult legend Jordan Eberle rounds up the first line for the Kraken. Jaden Schwartz, Alex Wenberg, and Oliver Bjorkstrand make up the second line. Ryan Donato, Yanni Gord, and Andre Burakovsky make up the third line, and the fourth line for the Seattle Kraken. Brandon Tanev, Morgan Geekie, and Daniel Sprong. The defensive core for the Kraken here. Vince Dunn is alongside former Edmonton Oiler and probably a defenseman the Edmonton Oilers need right now, Adam Larson. They make up the top pairing. Jamie Alexiak lines up alongside former Edmonton Oiler as well, Justin Schultz, who's having a pretty interesting season with the Kraken so far this year. And to round it out, potentially future Edmonton Oiler, Carson Soucy alongside Will Borgen on the third pairing. And Philip Grubauer will start for the Seattle Kraken against the Edmonton Oilers tonight. Now, the interesting thing around the Seattle Kraken is, yes, they currently sit in a playoff spot for the Pacific Division. Yes, they've been one of the top teams in the Pacific Division in general. But the team isn't too impressive in a couple of very important stats. And we all know the Edmonton Oilers power play is the best in the league, and right now potentially on pace to be the greatest power play of all time. Power play hasn't had this high of a percentage since they started keeping count of the stat, I believe, in 77-78, if I'm not mistaken, at 32.3%. The Kraken's power play is the 20th best in the league, with a 21% even. Now, the PK. Most games the Edmonton Oilers go into, they have a severe disadvantage in the penalty killing system, but not so much in this one, as they are 27th in the league right now with 72.5, actually getting better and has looked better over the last couple of games. But the Seattle Kraken's penalty kill sits 31st in the league. 31st. At a very impressive 69.2%. If Seattle takes a penalty against the Oilers, it could be a massive, massive deal for the Seattle Kraken and could be an issue as well in this game. If they start to get undisciplined in this game, it could be over for them. So something to watch as well in that one. Now, a couple of other things to watch for as well. The Seattle Kraken are not very good in the face-off dot. Now you take a look at their centers and you go, okay, that kind of makes sense. Their top center is a rookie right now in Matty Beniers, Alex Wenberg, Yanni Gord, and Morgan Geekie. They don't exactly exude face-off prowess. But the numbers tell the exact same story as the Seattle Kraken sit in the bottom half of the league when it comes to shorthanded face-off wins and defensive zone face-off wins. Shorthanded face-off wins, they sit 25th in the league with a 78 shorthanded face-off wins out of a possible 186. And then in their own D zone, they sit 31st in the league at defensive zone face-off wins at 280 out of a possible 580. and 94. The Edmonton Oilers, in their own end, sit 11th in the league when it comes to defensive zone faceoff win. So faceoffs might be a big thing to watch for in this game. Whoever wins the more important faceoffs, the offensive zone faceoffs, the special team faceoffs, the late and period faceoffs, those might be something that go hand in hand in tonight's game between the Edmonton Oilers and the Seattle Kraken, as they face off at 8 o'clock Mountain Time at Climate Pledge Arena. Going to be a great game as a playoff spot is up for grabs as the real rush for the playoffs is starting now. This is going to be real exciting down the road here. Now, something that could be very exciting down the road is we're going to get some trades at some point here. Bob Stauffer kind of hinted on Oilers Now yesterday that, as he put it, teams aren't going to wait until the deadline to address some needs. Now we have seen some news out of New York that a former first overall pick is falling out of favor with the coach in New York. So, could a change of scenery help? And could a change of scenery for an Edmonton Oiler also help? We will talk about that in just a second. But first, today's episode is brought to you by the NHTSA. You're hanging out with some friends and putting back a few drinks. A few becomes a few too many, and as the evening comes to an end and people start to head out, you think of calling for a ride. Nah, you live nearby. You can make it home okay. It's no big deal. What are the odds you'll get pulled over anyway? And even so, what's the worst that could happen? Your insurance goes up, you lose your license, you lose your job, you total your car, you kill someone. Everyone knows about the risks of driving drunk. The results are tragic and often deadly. However, that still doesn't stop everyone from getting behind the wheel while under the influence. That's why police officers are out there right now looking for impaired drivers on our roads. Save lives. So if you think you're okay to drive after a few drinks, think again. Play it safe and plan ahead to get a ride. It only takes one mistake to change your life or someone else's forever. Drive sober or get pulled over. Alrighty, as we move on here on today's episode of Locked On Oilers, we are taking a look at, let's talk about the headline first. As Alexis Lafreniere gets the healthy scratch bomb, or the health bomb as some people like to call it, healthy scratched for the New York Rangers on Wednesday. And it's launched a lot of conversation. Now you have guys like Alexis Lafreniere, Kaapo Kakko, Vitaly Kravtsov, a lot of guys within, prospects really, within the Rangers organization that just haven't panned out for whatever reason. A lot of top prospects that haven't panned out. Heck, Lafreniere, first overall pick, Kaapo Kakko, second overall pick. These are high picks and highly touted prospects, and they have done next to nothing in regards to impact for their teams. They have shown types and moments of brilliance, but when Philip Hedl is the top prospect or the guy that really shows out or develops for the New York Rangers, is that really a good sign? I don't know. But it has now sparked a conversation on whether or not Alexis Lafreniere is available. Now, people have reported that there has been a set price made for Alexis Lafreniere, and it got me thinking. The top prospect who is kind of falling out with his team and his coach. Well, that sounds familiar. Player who, maybe they just need a change of scenery. They need a fresh start. That sounds familiar. Oh, this guy was a top-end talent back in juniors before he got drafted, blah, blah, blah. That sounds familiar, too. maybe the Edmonton Oilers have a guy that could use a fresh start. That was a prolific junior hockey player who is a top prospect and has shown etches of brilliance sometimes. Yeah, yes, a Puljujarvi. I'm a big supporter of Puljujarvi. I love Puljujarvi. I will never not be a Puljujarvi supporter. Love the guy, but there's also a product on the ice that needs to be sold, really. And right now, he's not doing so. So far this season, yes, Puljujarvi in 36 games has 2 goals, 6 assists, 8 points. Alexis Lafreniere in 36 games has 5 goals, 12 assists, 17 points. Over double the amount of points that Jesse Puljujarvi has. Now, we all know my favorite stat or advanced stat is the goals for and goals against per 60 minutes, as it puts everybody on a level playing ground. If everybody was playing 60 minutes, how much would you be producing offensively and defensively? Well, this year, Alexis Lafreniere absolutely dominates over what Jesse Puljujarvi does for the Edmonton Oilers. His goals for per 60 minutes at 5 on, or in all situations, would put him 9th on the Edmonton Oilers with a 2.9. He would be above Jesse Puljujarvi in that situation. At 5 on 5, the goals for per 60 minutes, he would also sit 9th there, above Jesse Puljujarvi at a 2.65. And then defensively, he would be very impressive. In all situations, he would sit 6th on the Edmonton Oilers with a 2.42, above Jesse Puljujarvi. At 5 on 5, a 2.71 goals against per 60 minutes, which would put him 13th on the Edmonton Oilers, above Jesse Puljujarvi. And then I decided, okay, let's get, is he swinging above his weight class here? Everybody knows Igor's better. Everybody knows this whole goaltending situation. The Rangers have a very good defensive core as well. Maybe those can put into get affected a little bit in there. Fair enough. He also doesn't play a lot of shorthanded time and power play time either. Neither does Jesse Puljujarvi, however. So I decided to take a look at the expected goals for and goals against per 60 minutes, and still was very impressive. His expected goals for per 60 minutes would put him in the top 10 again on the Edmonton Oilers with a 3.04. And then his goals against per 60 minutes would put him 4th on the Edmonton Oilers. The expected goals against, would put him 4th on the Edmonton Oilers with a 2.49. Below Jesse Puljujarvi. Below Jesse Puljujarvi, who sits 3rd. Now, you sit here and Lafreniere's expected goals against per 60 minutes sits at a 2.49. His actual goals against per 60 minutes in all situations is at a 2.42. Not a very, very big difference at all, really, in that sense. However, Jesse Puljujarvi currently sits above Alexis Lafreniere in that in that stat line, but sits behind Lafreniere when it comes to the practical and actual goals against per 60 minutes. That is an issue. That is an issue. The only thing as well that Jesse Puljujarvi, alongside the expected goals against per 60 minutes, that he is above Lafreniere in is hits, and it's only by 4. Jesse Puljujarvi leads the Edmonton Oilers in hits with 74, and Lafreniere has 70. Lafreniere would still lead the Edmonton Oilers in hits if he were to be traded to the Edmonton Oilers for Jesse Puljujarvi. Clean Costin is 2nd on the Edmonton Oilers right now with 60. He adds a little bit of grit. He adds a little bit of offensive touch, a little bit of defensive touch. You're getting an upgrade from Jesse Puljujarvi, who's currently playing on the top line with Connor McDavid. But Those are only the numbers from this season. I decided to take a look at the last 3 years for these two players in these stat lines here, and in goals for per 60 minutes in all situations, goals against per 60 minutes in all situations, goals for per 60 minutes at 5-on-5, and goals against per 60 minutes at 5-on-5. Expected goals for and expected goals against at per 60 minutes in all situations. In all of those stat lines, Jesse Puljujarvi over the last 3 years has outpaced Alexis Lafreniere. Yes, now the other thing is Alexis Lafreniere has played 171 career games, and Jesse Puljujarvi has played 295. But is it worth it? Puljujarvi in his career has 48 goals, 58 assists, 106 points, where Lafreniere has 171 games played, 36 goals, 33 assists, 69 points. His career high in goals came last year with 19, where Puljujarvi's career year didn't come last year, but the year before, where he had 15 goals. But last year, he had 14 goals, 22 assists, 36 points. Is it a true upgrade? Does Lafreniere help the Oilers at all? Yeah, you let me know. Would you make the deal 1-for-1, Alexis Lafreniere for Jesse Puljujarvi? Would you do it? Just a thought. I'm not saying that I would or wouldn't. Just thought it would be an interesting conversation to have either way. You let me know what you would do with Jesse Puljujarvi and more specifically Alexis Lafreniere. Let's wrap up today's episode in this year's final episode. Yes, this is the last episode of 2022. That is insane. Let's wrap up this episode with the Beast of the Week. And as mentioned, this guy owns Calgary. I mean, he is the mayor of Calgary. Put a big red cowboy hat on his head. He is the mayor of Calgary. We'll talk about him in just a second, but first, I want to thank you for making Locked On Oilers your first listen of the day. Now for your second listen, make sure you tune into Locked On Sports Today. The biggest stories around the sports world in 20 minutes or less, plus instant reactions, game recaps, and Locked On's take of the day. Locked On Sports Today, available on YouTube and wherever you find your podcasts. Alrighty, we are going to wrap up today's episode with our running title here. This used to be the Dog of the Week. The Dog, woof, woof, woof. Used to be and now we're changing it to the Beast of the Week, as I meant to check who it was who suggested it. I forget who suggested it. If it was you, thank you so much for suggesting this to be the Beast of the Week. If you have other ideas for the name of this segment, please send them in and we shall trial by fire, as I like to call it. But either way, the Beast of the Week this week for the Edmonton Oilers is an obvious one. The Edmonton Oilers only played one game this week, and this guy has been unbelievable. 117 saves in 120 shots against the Calgary Flames so far this season for Stuart Skinner. 46 saves on Tuesday night against the Calgary Flames on 47 shots, a .979 save percentage on Tuesday, a .975 all year against the Calgary Flames. In fact, a career against the Calgary Flames. Got the win against the Flames in a very, very tight 2-1 victory. And this kid has just been something else. I read a tweet before even coming on today's show saying that he is arguably the Edmonton Oilers MVP. A player who coming into the year wasn't supposed to even play 50 games. And Stuart Skinner has come in here, got an extension, got a massive win against the biggest rival in Edmonton Oilers history, a good old Southside Edmonton kid. And he continues to do it. Stuart Skinner, 11-9-1 this year, a 2.81 goals against average, and a .916 save percentage. I don't know the last time I saw an Edmonton Oilers goaltender with a above 910 save percentage, never mind an above 915 save percentage. But here's Stuart Skinner, giving the Edmonton Oilers a chance to win in every single game he plays in. And that's what a goaltender does. And that's what a goaltender did against the Calgary Flames on Tuesday night. Your beast of the week, Stuart Skinner. Who else? Who else was it going to be? Either way, let's wrap it up there, everybody. I just want to thank you for welcoming me in this year as I took over for Hernan. Thank you so much for Hernan as well for holding up the fort for the first half of the year and me picking up the slack for the second half of the year. Appreciate everybody joining on YouTube, on the audio podcast. If you haven't subscribed to YouTube yet, what are you doing? You get to see some amazing jerseys, including, that's Puljujarvi, including a Linus Omark jersey as well. I want to bring the best possible product to you in a way that you haven't before in this media, in Edmonton's crazy Edmonton Oilers media scene. So I want to thank you for helping me be a part of it, and only going to be so many more exciting things coming in 2023. So thank you so much for joining me so far this year, and here's to so many more exciting things in the future. I shall see you on the flip. I shall see you in 2023, everybody. Enjoy tonight's game between the Edmonton Oilers and the Seattle Kraken, an 8 o'clock puck drop in Seattle at Climate Pledge Arena. Come on. How could you not be excited for this one? Hopefully at the end of this one and heading into tomorrow's game, we can all party along and play La Bamba, baby.